We're excited to have Kirk Cousins here with us. You know, Kirk Cousins played his high school football at Holland Christian, his college football at Michigan State University, and now as a pro football player with the Minnesota Vikings. And we're expecting then, just in optimistic anticipation of enjoying his Super Bowl MVP acceptance speech next year. Let's all give a warm welcome to Kirk Cousins, player and a man of God.
Thanks, Brian.
Great, thanks.
Which side do you want me on?
I'm gonna have over here, but let me, before you sit down, just, if I could just get a picture here. I saw Millennial do this once.
Yeah,
You know,
that is a millennial thing.
it is, and what I want to do is thank all of the millennials in the room for teaching us how to do a selfie up, down, not like into our noses. So, right, millennials, thank you. Can we get everybody back behind here? Oh, I just turned it off.
Baby boomers. There we go.
Perfect. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you. Kurt, it is really a privilege to have you with us. We appreciate you taking your time and coming and talking with our guests here tonight. I feel like I've just invited you into my living room.
Yeah.
We don't have any game film to break down today.
Good. I don't want to.
Don't worry about that. But you know, in our lives, God brings us through a different kind of game. You know, if you look back on your life, we're going to ask you to look back on your life and some of the things that God has taught you through your life. But to start, share with us a little bit about your family. We understand you have a new addition to your family.
Yes. So about a month ago, our second son was born, Turner Moses. And so we have an 18-month-old son, Cooper Wesley, and then Turner Moses was born a month ago. So my wife is back in Atlanta with my in-laws, grandparents, and they're holding down the fort with the two young boys while I'm up here. So it's a thrill, you know, to have two healthy boys, a lot of answered prayers. We don't take that for granted, and can't wait to raise them and to see how God has wired them and to participate in kind of steering them towards the calling that He has on their life, whatever that may be.
Your family is important to you as a young person, as a young athlete. How was your family instrumental in building your faith?
I mean, the biggest piece. You know, I say it many times. I'm a PK, a pastor's kid. You know, my dad was in the ministry my entire life, and so, you know, both my parents, you know, at a very young age, they're presenting the gospel to you, and I remember praying the prayer in the back of church one morning, and at 7 or 8 years old, and then just continued, you know, to be nurtured in that as I grew up with both my older brother and my younger sister, and then it was in high school in Christian education. I had a high school Bible teacher named Ray Vanderlaan, a great teacher. And in you know, conjunction with my family back home and my parents, he really challenged me with the verse 1 John 2:6, which says, you know, those who claim to be in Him must walk as Jesus walked. And he said, you know, this wasn't just about praying a prayer at 7 or 8 years old, Kirk. This is about, does your walk look like how Jesus walked? And are you going to be a disciple of Jesus? Are you going to be a fully devoted follower, which has been defined to me many times as, you know, when culture goes this way, if Jesus and His teachings went that way, we're going that way. No matter what it may cost us, no matter how different we may look, no matter how much it may feel like we're swimming upstream, we're going that way. And he said, you know, are you willing for your walk to look like that? And at that moment, I just put a stake in the ground and I said, yep, that's going to be me. And certainly it's not perfect, but you're striving for that, and you're striving to look like Jesus. And so thankfully I put that stake in the ground before going to Michigan State, where you better believe culture was going this way, and the student body many times is going this way. And if you're going to stand for Jesus at a major public university, you are going to stand out, and you are going to swim upstream a little bit. But I look back now and just see God's hand over that, the hand of protection, and when 1 Samuel 2:30 says, the Lord says, "Those who honor me, I will honor." It's pretty simple, and when you take a stand for Him and you honor Him, He steps up, and so He's certainly done that far more than I could have ever imagined.
As a pastor's kid, you know that pastors only work on Sundays.
Right,
and
exactly.
now, as an NFL quarterback,
I only work on Sundays. That's pretty
basically,
good.
yeah.
It's a family business. We just work on Sundays.
Kirk, what do you do for fun and relaxation?
It's a great question. I've asked myself that question a few times. My wife has asked that of me a few times, you know. I come from a family, we're intense. It's just kind of in our wiring. I think it's a strength, and sometimes your strength can also be your weakness. And so my intensity is a great thing to me on the football field, but my wife sometimes wishes there was more of an off switch. And so she's been great for me in that standpoint, and just providing balance and saying, Kirk, it's okay to rest. It's okay to have a hobby. And so, I've taken up golf a little bit, but even that, that probably frustrates me more than it relaxes me. And then I do love to read. I try to grab some books, and then inevitably I'm grabbing books from more of the Christian, self-help area, learning how leadership and those kinds of things. And my wife says, no, go grab a fun book. Go grab a biography on somebody from World War II or something. You don't have to just go study. So I enjoy that. And then honestly, at the end of the day, if you were to say, Kirk, what's your happy place? I'd say being on my back deck in Saugatuck, Michigan, looking out at a sunset on Lake Michigan with family. That's my sweet spot. And I'm hoping to get as many of those nights as possible this summer before training camp begins. But nowhere else I'd rather be than West Michigan on a summer evening.
Nice. I and probably everyone else in the room that played high school football would love to tell you our football stories.
But I'm sure you have some good ones.
Later. But tell us a highlight of your time playing in the NFL.
Well, it's been such a journey, and I often think of Ephesians 3:20 when I think of my football career, because when I was in high school, and you have to remember this, because you look back and you just assume that this was how it was going to work out. But when I was in high school, as a freshman, I played on the freshman team. As a sophomore, I played in the JV team. As a junior, I was injured and wasn't heavily recruited. I played my last high school football game as a senior in high school with no scholarship offers. So I was not a five-star recruit. I wasn't being paraded around the country. I wasn't being wined and dined by college coaches. And so this journey has gone so much further than I ever thought it would. I was just hoping maybe to play at Hope College in my hometown. And to look back and think that was where I was thinking it was going to go. You think of Ephesians 3:20, which says, now to him who can do immeasurably more than all we can ask or imagine. And you realize God is so much bigger than we realize. And he had a plan for my life that was so much bigger than I had for my life. And so it has created quite a journey and quite a story and stories within that story. But one funny one that comes to mind is just last season, we played the Rams on Thursday Night Football. And it was out in L.A. I think it was week 4, so pretty early in the year. And we go down and score, and it's early in the game. And our coaches decided to go for 2. So I looked at the sideline, and they're kind of saying, stay out there, stay out there. They put up the two-point signal. Well, then he gives me the play, but the headsets went out. So I have earpiece in my helmet. So he has like a walkie-talkie of sorts and will tell me the play. Well, the headset went out, so I didn't have anything. And then at 15 seconds, the headset goes out every single play. So sometimes I can, at 25 seconds on the play clock, I can look over the sideline and know I got 10 seconds and say, hey, I need to play again. It cut out. Well, at this point, I look back and did this, but then I look up and the play clock was at like 17 seconds, so 16, 15, and then I hear a and it cut out. So I walk into the huddle, I got nothing. And I look at my teammates and I go, guys, what's our best 2-point conversion play? You tell me. And Kyle Rudolph, who's one of the smarter players I've ever played with, another smart one sitting here tonight, Andrew Hawken, but Kyle Rudolph said to me, he goes, how about such and such a play? And I said, that sounds good. Let's do that one because I'm at a loss right now. So I called it, and we went up there, and it worked. And so, sometimes you have all these plays, and you get all these, free agency and the draft, and they talk about analytics, and sometimes you just draw one up in the dirt, and it still works. So, it's still backyard football out there sometimes.
Everybody Everybody get open.
Everybody just get open, guys. And offensive line, protect. Just figure it out. There have been a few of those moments, where I'll be in my cadence and the center looks back like, how do you want us to pick this up? And I'll say, I look at the clock, it's running down. Figure it out, You find a guy and block him. We'll be all right.
Is that what Omaha means? Figure it out?
Something like that.
Kirk, you've had a lot of athletic accomplishments. You've had accomplishments beyond athletics as well. What would you consider to be your greatest accomplishment?
The football thing will always follow me, but obviously, as I've said many times when I travel around, if football is the foundation of my life doesn't amount to a whole lot. I mean, football is going to end for me someday, and I remember throwing an interception at Notre Dame in 2009, and I remember getting hit and seeing the interception. I'm getting up off the turf and pulling grass out of my helmet because I got hit so hard into the turf, and I'm listening to the deafening sound of 80,000 people cheering my failure at this field at Notre Dame as I'm walking off the field and just feeling awful and going to a sideline where, I got to walk over to 100 guys who I just let down. And I remember thinking, along with, boy, this is really tough, I remember thinking, thank you, God, that my life is not built on football. Because if my life is football, this whole thing just went up in flames. Fortunately, because of Scripture and the Bible, and that's my playbook for life, I've got hope. And I know that God's going to use this interception, although it really stinks right now. God's going to use it for His purposes. It's not going to be wasted. It's going to have meaning in the grand scheme of things, and it's going to bring Him glory, and it's going to be for my good. And not that I go chasing those moments, because I don't want those moments to happen, but when they do happen, I have a peace. And so that foundation of my life. So when you say what's your greatest accomplishment, it's got to be beyond football. I will say it was a life goal of mine, and my parents encouraged me in this goal, but they said, Kirk, make sure you marry up. In other words, find someone who just in many areas of life is just maybe a notch caliber higher than you, and I think I found that in my wife, Julie, and so that was a life goal that I think we achieved, and now being married for almost 5 years, you see the value of marrying up, and so that would probably be one of my greatest accomplishments.
And I've never met a happy man who doesn't think he married up.
Right, amen. Happy wife, happy life.
Kirk, there's a lot of leaders in this room from a wide variety of life circumstances, work, life experiences, and every leader faces pressure. Yeah. Few face the kind of pressure that you face, when the ball is snapped. When the ball snapped, I feel pressure, and I'm sitting on my couch. So as a leader who's under extreme pressure when the ball's snapped, how do you maintain focus and composure?
It's a great question. I think what I want to say to that question is that to peek behind the curtain, I deal with worry and anxiety. I mean, I'm not going to work with this overwhelming sense of confidence that I got this. I got this. It's going to be easy. I'm a rock star. We got this. It's very much the opposite. There's a lot of inadequacy. And within reason, I think that's healthy. Obviously, it can't become, irrational fear. But I think inadequacy can be a healthy place where God can use that humility and use that dependence on Him to really show us, again, how big He is. And so I go into most games feeling very inadequate. And the interceptions don't help, in those moments. But I remember, taking the field for games where they announce your name and you run out and looking around at the bright lights and 70,000 people and millions more watching on TV. And I just say, God, give me grace, because I do recognize the pressure and I do understand that this is not easy and this is a grind. And God, I need your grace. I need your undeserved favor here to help carry me through this. And so that's a big part of it. So I would want you to know that I feel that. I feel that pressure. It's there. But, I've heard the quote about, courage. Courage is feeling fear and going ahead anyways. And that's probably where I'm at a little bit. It's just you feel that, but you say, you know what? Here we go. And God's going to be there with me every step of the way. And I look back and I realize that, playing football, it may sound weird to say because it's not specifically ministry, but I feel like playing football is where God's anointed me. And so when I'm on the football field, I come alive. When I'm on the football field, that's where I can invest in other people's lives and make a positive difference, and where I've had the greatest ability to do ministry, if you will. So I say, Lord, this is where you've called me. This is where you seem to bless me. When I'm out here, you seem to bless me. So I got to trust that you're going to show up. And that helps with the pressure. I do spiritualize it, and I say, Lord, you brought me here. You're not going to drop me, and I have to believe that and trust you. But there's a lot of moments in professional football and even my college football journey where I'm standing there, if you will, like the Israelites at the Red Sea. And I look to the right and left, and I see mountains. I look across, and I see a sea of water, and I look back, and I feel like the Egyptians are chasing me, and I'm like, Lord, you're going to have to show up here because this isn't good. And time and again, in his own way, he seems to, quote unquote, part the Red Sea. And I do think God brings us to those moments in life so that he can part a Red Sea for us and show us how big he really is. But you better believe at that moment before he parts it, there's going to be some pressure.
Do you have a couple other things that you would share with the leaders in the room, things that you believe are critical to good leadership?
Well, I was in a leadership laboratory at Michigan State, my dad would say, that my time there, when you're able to work with teammates from all walks of life, guys coming from inner city Detroit, guys coming from West Michigan, from Hawaii, all over the country, you have players coming in, coaches from all over the country, all different backgrounds, ages. It gives you an opportunity to really become a good leader in a laboratory. And I had that opportunity, and I learned a lot of lessons through trial and error. But my dad certainly knows his fair share about leadership, and he defines leadership, and I think it's a really good definition, is leadership is taking someone else where they want to go, but they can't get there on their own. If they could get there on their own, they don't need a leader. The reason they need a leader is because they got to get somewhere and they can't get there on their own. So I always viewed it as, to be a leader, you have to identify where other people want to go. Not where you want to go, where do other people want to go? And then how can I help them get to where they want to go? And I was back at Michigan State just yesterday watching practice, and Coach D asked if I would speak to the team for a minute. And I stood up there and I looked in the back of the room and saw all the coaches who were there when I was there and are still coaching. And I said that definition, and I said, when I showed up as an 18-year-old freshman, I had no idea what it took to be all Big Ten. I had no idea what it took to become an NFL draft pick, but those guys did. And so they took me to where I wanted to go, which was all Big Ten or an NFL draft pick, but I didn't know how to get there on my own. And so they took me there. And I think, I was just at Chick-fil-A the other day meeting with some people, and the founder of Chick-fil-A has a great quote on the wall there. It says, "People think we're in the chicken business. We're not. We're in the people business." And that's a line that comes from someone who's thinking like a leader, because he knows he uses the selling of chicken to build people's lives, to develop people. He's not using people to sell chicken. And I try to play football the same way. We're going to use this game of football and this vehicle and this locker room as a way to invest in and serve and grow other people. And I think that's how leaders should think. And that's where the servant leadership really comes in.
Yeah, and if others in the room are like me, as you're talking about that, I'm picturing our students at Grace Christian University where they want to go, and we want to help them be a guide for them as they are the heroes for what's happening.
Yes.
Kirk, generosity is important to you and your wife, and the tagline for the Julie and Kirk Cousins Foundation is "Making Famous the Generous Heart of God." Can you tell us about you and Julie, your approach to generosity?
Well, Julie and I have really studied this generosity thing now for the last couple of years and really wrestled with what God is calling us to do. And we do believe that our giving needs to be uncomfortable. We need to be made
Sorry, it's not me. It's not me. Kirk, your time is not up. We are good to go. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. You're fine. Just speaking on generosity, I just feel like we want to be uncomfortable in our giving, and we want to make sure that whatever giving we do, that it stretches us. And I think that's true of anybody. The numbers are different for different people, but it needs to make you feel a little uncomfortable and force you to trust God and believe that when you make that gift, that if God doesn't show up, boy, we're in trouble here. We need Him to show up, and then watch Him show up. So we wrestled with that and enjoyed that journey of learning what that looks like, and again, go back to Chick-fil-A. I was there, a couple days ago, so it comes to mind. But the founder had another great line. He said, Jesus said something that people love to say, but few people really believe it, and that is, it's more blessed to give than to receive. if you really believe that, what would happen to your giving? If you really believe that. We say it, but if our giving's not that stretching, then maybe we're not really believing that phrase. And so we want to live in a way that says, Jesus, again, culture goes that way. Culture says to hoard it and to store it up for a rainy day and, to a point of hoarding and to kind of control. And Jesus says, no, it's more blessed to give than to receive. And so we've got to make a decision at that moment. Are we going to go with culture or are we going to go with Jesus? And, we're trying to grow in that uncomfortability of, we're going to go with Jesus.
And I love this tagline that you and your wife have for your foundation, and how it emphasizes God and that He is the one who is generous.
Yeah, we always say, I was at Michigan State, I would walk down the Shaw Lane going to class, and I'd say, this was before I ever started a game, and I just would pray, on my way. I got a 20-minute walk across a big campus in a snowstorm, and I would just say, Lord, I want you to become famous on this campus. And Lord, I know that if you bless the football career, I could help partner in that. I could have a role to play in that. And I'd like to do that. Would you elevate my platform on the football field such that I can help play a role and you don't need my help, but I'd like to help make you famous on this campus. And I think the foundation's the same way. Lord, you've given us so much, and we see how generous you really are. We talk about grace, undeserved favor. I didn't deserve any of this. And He's just showered it and just said, Kirk, you don't understand how big I am, how much I can do. And we want other people to see that. We want other people to feel how generous God really is. And so we hope that foundation can make famous His generous heart through the way that we go about our giving. And it's a balance, right? We believe our left hand should know what our right hand is doing. So we're not giving and trying to pat ourselves in the back. But Scripture also makes it clear that we should shine our light before men, and we should, they should see our good works and glorify our Father in heaven. And so we're wrestling even with that of what does it look like to give in humility, but to also allow others to be inspired by that too, and to not just do it so secretly that no one can ever, learn more about God and His generous heart. So we're working through that too. We're on a journey just like everybody else,
You talked a couple times about the difference between the direction culture is going and the way that Christ is going, the way that Jesus is going. You want to follow Him. You specifically mentioned going to MSU, major state university, that culture is going to go one way and you've got to be ready. So you went to MSU as a student athlete. At the same time, you're a proponent of Christian education.
Right.
Why is this important to you and to Julie?
Well, I do have a unique perspective. I attended Christian school from my 7th grade year through 12th grade. That was 6 years. But my perspective is unique because I attended public schooling from kindergarten through 6th grade and then again for college. And so I bookended this public education with this Christian education. So I've seen both sides. And coming out of that, I have a tremendous belief in the power of Christian education. And I just saw the impact it had on my life. I referenced what that Bible teacher had to say to me as a 16 or 17-year-old and the difference it made. I look back and think about my chemistry teacher who taught me a principle about water and how it's basically a miracle how water works in our world and the difference it makes, and how if this one thing about the way water's molecules are arranged was different, the entire universe wouldn't function the way it does. And he made that point, and then he brought it to the gospel. He said, see, the reason that water works that way and the universe does work is because there's a God who created it intelligently, who loves you and me, wants to have a relationship with you and me, and He connected chemistry to the gospel. And it's pretty powerful. Well, I go to Michigan State. I'm in pre-med. I'm in a chemistry class, and the teacher taught the same thing except for the gospel part. She said, This is a very unique thing. Water does this. It behaves differently than all the other molecules. And when water freezes, it does this. And if it didn't do this, we wouldn't have life. It wouldn't work. And yet water does this. It's really unique. Moving on. And I'm sitting there in the third row taking notes going, no, there's more to the story. There's a God who loves us. There's a God, don't you guys see? There's a God who designed it this way intelligently with a reason because He loves us, wants to have a relationship, wants to bless us, has a generous heart, wants to be a part of our lives, and wants us to live and thrive. Where's that message? It's not there. And you can say, well, you'll get that elsewhere. Okay, yep, you should. I don't believe that Christian education should replace the local church. It shouldn't replace the home. but it certainly can provide that as well. I mean, my dad's a smart guy. He wasn't going to teach me about chemistry, I can tell you that. So he wasn't going to be teaching me about water molecules and all, So it was pretty special when you can go to school and you can get that in addition to what you're getting at the local church or at home. And, I just really believe in the power of Christian education. I believe that God is blessing what Grace Christian is doing. I think the numbers tell the story, what they're doing. I mean, the athletics. I mean, what they've done in the athletic fields in just the last year is incredible. I believe, you want to be, and we want to be with our foundation where God is moving. Let's find where God is and let's go there. It would appear just by an observation that God is moving in Grace Christian, in the leadership and in the work they're doing, and seems like a place that would make a lot of sense to get behind because of the product they have.
It's great when you say to find where God is working. And, at Grace Christian, we're still a small school. With our growth, we're still a small school, and we see it a privilege to be part of what God is doing in the world. Kurt, another question just for you in terms of leadership within a culture, of the NFL culture. I would imagine that not everyone on the team, whether it's previous teams or current team, that not everyone on the team is looking for you to lead them in how to live their life.
Sure, absolutely.
How do you influence those who may not be as influenceable or,
Yeah. Well, you understand you're not going to reach everyone, and you may not even reach that many people. But you live your life. You try to set an example. You got to walk the walk first and foremost, and you trust the guys are observing the way you conduct yourself, and you invite them. You try to build relationships, and I try to identify the people and the players that may make more sense. That seem to be engaging and seem to be at a position in their heart where they may be more willing to take a step than someone else, and so you may focus in on that teammate for a time, but everybody's on their own journey at different places, and you don't know what seed you may plant that years from now bears fruit because of someone else who comes along and plants another seed. So you just try to be faithful and honor God and trust that He will honor that in His way and His time.
Any final words of encouragement for the people here in how they might partner with Grace Christian University and Christian education like you described?
Well, I had the pleasure of meeting many of you on the way in, and I just want to say thank you to those of you who have already given of your time to be here tonight. Your time is a very valuable thing, and just really honored and privileged to meet many of you who have already given so generously to make tonight possible and to bring this school along to where it already is. And so thank you for your example. I do believe that I come from good stock, and when I say that, I mean West Michigan. The people in West Michigan, their hearts, they have generous hearts. This is a tremendous community. I'm probably the most prayed for player in the NFL. And the big reason is because I'm coming from West Michigan, where people are committed to prayer. And so it's an honor to say I'm from West Michigan. And hopefully I can say that the rest of my life as we keep coming back. So I just want to encourage you and just say, well done. Keep it going. Continue to stretch yourself and see what the Lord will do with it. Because if my life is any example, He'll take you immeasurably farther than all you could ask or imagine.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's thank Kirk Cousins.
Great. Thank you. Thanks, Brian.
Yeah, I think Ken is going to come.